obviously my favorite food. No shock to anybody. No shock to anybody. Post the gift down below. Wow, shocker.
Yes, yes.
It,
All right, friends, it's your boy, Mr. Marchack. I am here with a very good friend of mine. I have known this man for several years now, and we have been talking about doing something like this for a while now. I've been wanting to get into the interview game for a very long time, and I said to myself, "Self, you've got to talk to your boy first." So please welcome my good friend, my brother, Ricardo Segarra.
Anderson, thank you for having me. I'm so happy we finally do this. We've been talking about this for so long and just trying to find a way for us to, get things out and just communicate with each
Right.
other. And I heard, I was excited. You were talking about getting into the interview process, and I was like, "Oh man, I hope." And you're like, "I'm gonna get
Oh
you
no.
first." So I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. I'm like, "Let's go."
I appreciate it, and I want to let them know I appreciate you making the time for me right now. What's going on in your house right now that you have the time to speak to me right now?
Right now, uh, my, my wife Britt and my daughter Mara, who's 3, are sound asleep.
Uh huh.
I take care of the baby at night. Britt has long days at work, so at night, I'm working on dinner. I'm giving her her bath time, her baba
Hmm.
before bed, combing her hair. I've got in touch with my feminine side, if you will, and and I put her down to bed. And I'm like, all right, I can make the time to do this, and here I am right now.
Well, I thank you for making the time, and I'm sure everybody that sees this will thank you for making the time as well.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Rick, over the years, you've made your time. Oh, excuse me, not that you've made your time. You've spent your time as an actor,
Mhm.
and you've done that both in film. You've done it online. Could you go through that with me? Your evolution as an actor over the years, transitioning from, you know, being on set, with the cameras and everything, and now you've kind of. I've seen you make this transition to somebody who's released most of his work online.
Mhm.
And could you please describe that process for me? Because you might have been a little ahead of the curve because now everyone's releasing their stuff online.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, obviously, when I first got started, the first when I got into acting, your brain kind of just dictates what you think movies are. And I was like, oh, there are these giant productions, there are multiple people coming together, giant crews and whatnot. And I had the luxury of being an extra in some major motion pictures and getting a firsthand experience of seeing what that was like. And I just knew I want to be a part of this. And so I started acting, and I started doing some commercial acting, some pilots here and there, and it was a fun experience. And there was just something about the ability to be able to tell my stories and the stories that I wanted to see and the stories that I want to participate in. And as a performer, sometimes you don't have the luxury of being able to choose what you want to do, but let alone you just want to work. You just want to go out and you want to get jobs, you want to get gigs, and you want to sink your teeth into these roles as much as you possibly can. And sometimes as a performer, you feel like you're not really getting what you want out of something. And I just decided, you know what, I want to make things I want to see. I want to participate in the roles that I want to participate in. And I just started writing and working on these projects and saying, you know what, I'm not even going to fight about distribution. I'm not going to worry about these things that are going to be such a process. I want to be able to make things and just give them to people. I wasn't worrying about finances. I wasn't worried about how much money something was going to make. I just wanted to be able to create and put that online for people to watch, so that way they can just see me at my craft, see me at my work. And I love what I do. And I think that it's a really opening and freeing experience, because you start to learn all these little tricks of the trade behind the scenes. You start working online, you start engaging with an audience, start seeing what works. You take criticism, constructive criticism, you're taking all that into account. Where sometimes if you're working on something that's very wide release, you can get just a barrage of noise, and you can't really pinpoint. But when you release something online, you can have your peers see it, your actor friends, your director friends, and they can watch it and really get a hold of you and say, this is how I felt. So it's been a really, really fun experience doing that transition from doing like TV, commercial acting, and things of that nature to something online where I've got just absolute freedom to just perform and create as much as I possibly can. And I love the experience. I love it, and I love seeing that other people are kind of taking that route as well.
Excellent, excellent. In your mind, obviously, I appreciate what you've done over the years. I'm not only your friend, but I'm a big fan of your work. And I've seen your film stuff. I've seen your comedy stuff, which you did for a while. And now I've seen, your independent short film stuff. And I like how sometimes it's original stuff. Sometimes it's fan films, which obviously they get the most clicks. You know how things go. But before you started doing this, in your mind, what was the one gig that you said, "You know what? If I could get this type of gig, this would be the gig that would make me pursue acting full time."
A gig that would act a full time. I
Let me give you a little bit of help then.
okay.
For some folks, they said, well, maybe it would be like a supporting role in a major motion picture.
Mm,
For some folks that pursued theater, they would have said, something on Broadway. I remember one time we had said, well, maybe landing a TV show wouldn't be a bad idea because then, you know, you would only play one role per se, but you'd still be with the same cast, the same crew. If the show does well, it would renew. So what in your mind, what do you think would have made you, I guess, pack your bags? I don't know what other way to say it.
it, I feel like in this type of scenario, you might have a lot of cliche answers. I think that a lot of people want to say, "Oh, a comic book film" or
Right.
something of that nature because they're bringing in so much attention right now. But I think that, and I remember our conversation that we had, and it was the idea of a series, a show on television where I feel like back in the day, it was kind of almost like it wasn't perceived the same as film. You kind of looked at TV as something that was inferior to film. And what I've loved over the years as we've progressed, TV has almost kind of become neck and neck with film in terms of popularity, in terms of pop culture. And there's a market there and there's a job there. And I remember thinking, you know what, if there was something that could secure the bag for me at the moment, it would be a television series. I would get the opportunity to work continuously for a decent amount of time and hone my craft to get better. We've seen this numerous times with performers where we may see someone in their first season grow as an actor and see them get better, to get more comfortable in front of the camera, to get more comfortable with their emotions. And I think it's a great training experience where if I was on a television show or even a mini series, the opportunity to work these hours and days and have an opportunity to grow and learn and continue and work with the same cast. And obviously sometimes they'll bring in different directors, new writers, and you get a new flavor and you get to really explore this one character and all the depth and layers that you would, just like doing new roles for new movies, but essentially one role and just finding new depth to that character. And I think that for me, that would have been something that might have just
Mm,
got me out the door. I know some people are ready to just drop everything at if they made any type of major motion picture, they're like, okay, I'm good, I'm off to the races.
right.
But the reality is, as we know, is once you're done that film, you're unemployed. You are an
Mm,
unemployed actor seeking work, and sometimes it's nice to put your eggs all in one basket sometimes, but you have to, you always got to have a safety net ready. So for me, something like a TV series,
mm,
even if it was a mini series, just something that I could really sink my teeth into for a considerable amount of time. And if God allows it, it allows me to transition into film or other things. But
right.
a TV series would have been awesome to kind of just secure the bag for me to say, you know what, I'm all in, let's go.
That's good stuff. And never say never.
Yeah,
Never say never. It could still happen one day. You never know. You never know. Uh, that'll bring us a nice transition here. Speaking of television and streaming and such. Could you, in your opinion, can you let me know how you feel about the current state of film? Obviously, we have a current situation going on in the world right now where we're not afforded the luxury of going to the movie theater, but television has kind of risen up over the years with streaming, and now it looks like the film industry is jumping on the boat, and some companies have, I don't know how to put it, have given us, the opportunity to stream a movie at home that we otherwise would have to go to the theater to see. Could you let me know your opinion on the current state of film and where do you think this is going to head to in the future?
Okay. First and foremost, I absolutely adore the theater, and
Hmm.
when you we've done numerous trips to the theater,
Same,
done
brother.
the theater experience, and I am an avid fan of film and theater, and I never want theater to go away. I think given this, what's currently happening today, I think streaming platforms have offered us an escape that we wouldn't necessarily be able to have due to what's happening in the world, and the idea that art doesn't have to be paused anymore because we now have these streaming platforms. Where for a considerable time I was very nervous about the film industry because of everything that was happening. I said, "Oh no, does everything get halted? Do we just stop?" Theaters weren't necessarily something that they wanted to remain open. So I got very, very, very nervous. I know the conversation years ago was, would theaters ever die out? And it's been a concern to myself and many others. And I was almost hesitant in the beginning, the idea that, oh, we're going to put these type of projects on a streaming platform for anybody to just be able to watch in their own home. And I'm like, well, what's that going to be like? What's that experience? It's nothing like the theater. But as time progressed, and I really started to see not just the advantages for people to feel comfortable in their own home, but the advantages that it was, and we touched on this earlier, was for filmmakers and creators, the opportunity to create something for a streaming platform, because that's going to alleviate a lot of the pressures that comes with a theatrical release, box office numbers, commercialism, how well something does here versus international. And we've seen in the past movies that we would love to be greenlight, and it's just never the case, because the reality is it's a business. Filmmaking is a business, and one of the number one priorities of business is profit. And I think that streaming at our current state, allowing us the opportunity to see some films that are very original that we might not have been given the opportunity to see in theaters, we're getting to see it in the comfort of our own home. So from that perspective, I'm a huge fan of what we're seeing. I love that there are some streaming services that are allowing the option, say, hey, if you can find us in a theater, it will be in a theater for you. And if for whatever reason, if there's not a theater open near you, we will provide it to you. And I think that's amazing, because a lot of the times it's not even up to us. There's not a local theater by me at the moment. I have to
Hmm.
drive completely out of my way to find something, almost 50 minutes to an hour, just to be able to go watch a movie. And for some people in their current lives, that's just not something they can pick up and go do, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's business, whatever the case may be. So the idea that streaming is kind of evolved, because it had
Hmm.
no other choice.
Right.
Um, what happened today kind of put a grip around the neck of theater and art, and the idea that now we don't have to have that grip anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, I hope theaters don't go away. I love theaters. I would love the opportunity that this option might remain open following the event. Should everything go back to normal, I would not be against the idea of saying, hey, you know what? This would be in the theater, but for those of you who can't make it to the theater for any reason, we don't want to deny you the opportunity to be able to see this film when you want to watch it. We provide it to you via streaming services. So I think it's great for people who need the assistance, who can't necessarily get to the theater whenever they want to. And I think that it's also great for creators and visionaries, because now we're going to get a lot of projects that might not have never seen the light of day due to studios' fear of it not bringing enough money. Now we get to see them, and original content is something I think we both strive for, and I love it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, as you know, in addition to film being a passion of mine, as yours as well, I do have my passions as far as motivational speaking is considered, motivation in general. But something I am very passionate about is mental health advocacy. And I did want to ask you, in your own words, what does mental health mean to you, and what do you do for your own mental health to keep things going?
Mental health. It's what I really appreciate about today is I believe that there is an attempt for civilization and society to come through and truly understand what mental health is all about. I
Mm,
think that for a long time, the conversation of mental health, people were very shy around it. It had a very negative connotation to it, where the idea of mental health was something just very bad. You didn't want to discuss it. It meant
right.
something was wrong. And I love that as time has gone on, we become more open to the idea of really understanding mental health. And there's so many layers and there's so much depth to mental health. And I think it helps us understand people in general,
Yeah.
where we're all human and we're all different. And a lot of the times it's our personality traits, but a lot of times people are going through something that we not may not be aware of. and mental health comes
Mm,
into play.
right.
And you have people that experience life in a certain way or have a different
Mm,
perspective on things, and sometimes people can lash out for those differences, but we never really take a step back and really try to understand, well, why that person feels that way. And a lot of times it can be, due to people's mental health. Where are they in their life? What have they been through? How has that affected who they are as a person? And I think that it's good to acknowledge the growth when it comes to advocacy for mental health and for awareness. Mental health doesn't necessarily have to be something that we shy away from anymore. I think we should acknowledge it. I think we should talk about it up front, and I think we should embrace it, I should say. And for me, I don't know if this sounds cliche, but for me, it's fitness.
right.
I've always appreciated fitness. I got into it early years in college, and I think when I first got into fitness, it was more of an aesthetic. I think I was more into it for the look. I was like, oh, well, I want to look in shape. I want to look good. I want to, and as time went on, I started to realize that I felt good about myself mentally. And whenever I would take a break from fitness or the gym, I felt off. Something
Mm,
was wrong. And it wasn't necessarily the idea of my body was changing, because that wasn't necessarily it, but it was the idea of like I felt like I was missing something that day. And it was a great way for me to just pause everything. You don't think about the stress you're dealing with at home. If you are, you're not thinking about bills, you're not thinking about your job. It was a great place for me to go and just kind of have a mental reset, because the only person I was competing against in the fitness and in gym was myself. And
mm,
I think that was a great challenge for me, was to be the best person I could be in fitness and just take care of my mental health. And when I'm not doing it, I feel off to the point where, unfortunately, with everything that was going on in the world today, as we talked about, gyms took a big hit as well, and
yeah.
gyms closed. And I was I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And again, it wasn't something as cheap as saying, what about my gains? It was really about, well, how is this going to affect me mentally?
Right.
Because I I use fitness, and I use this place of, you know health and fitness to take care of my mind just as much as my body.
Mm,
And I made it a point to work out at home and do everything I could at home. And luckily, I have friends who were there for me and said, hey, I've got this dumbbell, do you want it? I've got this bench, you came through for me, you gave me a weight vest, and, I've used it, and it's
great.
great way for me to just stay active and feel good about myself. And I know that that mental health and fitness for me go hand in hand, for me
That's
personally.
great.
You know what I mean? And that may not be the case for everybody. It might
Right.
be something else for someone else. But for me, it's fitness. And again, it wasn't the idea of the aesthetic anymore. It wasn't about like, oh, I've got to have striations. I've got to be big. That's not what it was. It just made me feel better knowing that I was going in there and I could just turn off the world for 35 minutes to an hour and just go in there and just do me, essentially. And it was great. It was great for me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. We're gonna start wrapping things up here. Before I go, I always wanted to ask like a fun question to close things out. So, all right, you've got your home theater set up to yourself, and you have a chance to watch your favorite movie, and you have a chance to eat whatever you want to eat. What are you watching? What do you eat, my friend?
Well, I feel I feel like anyone who knows me knows the answer to both these
Oh
questions.
yeah,
For me, my my favorite movie of all time is Ghostbusters.
yeah.
It's my absolute favorite movie. It was the first movie that I saw as young as I was, and I owe it to Ghostbusters that really got me to love film. I fell in love with Ghostbusters. I fell in love with film because of Ghostbusters.
It's great.
And it's one of those movies that no matter how old I get, it's my favorite movie. It's not technically the greatest movie I've ever seen. It's not this achievement of cinema that people talk about. We're talking author conversations, but there's something about that movie for me that it's somewhat of a comfort food. It's the movie that I saw when I was a kid that kind of opened my eyes to film. I'm watching this movie just being blown away by it. So if you asking me, it's Ghostbusters, and obviously my favorite food. No shot, anybody. No shock to anybody. Post the gift down below. Wow, shocker.
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's pizza. I'm a pizza.
Uh-huh. We
So,
know.
so if you ask me what would I partake in, like I watch Ghostbusters, and I'll have some pizza, half plain, half pepperoni, and I'm good, and I'm good with that. Those are my two go tos, man. I have so much fun showing that movie to people. I've shown Ghostbusters to many people who have never seen it, who have been at my house. And I said, "You've never seen Ghostbusters?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "We're watching Ghostbusters." Like that. That's what that movie is for me.
That's awesome. I love seeing the joy in your face. I love seeing the joy in anyone's face describing, things like, what they like to eat and what they like to watch, So thank you for that. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's the best. It's the best.
Well, Ricardo Segarra, this has been a pleasure. And I know this won't be the last time we do something like this.
We're gonna do it
And
a lot.
yeah, that sounds good. But I did want to thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you, my brother.
Love you, bro.
Let's change the world.
We'll do it.